Okay, hello again everyone. For this video we're going to be taking a look at spheres and we're going to find out how we can calculate the area and the volume of a sphere. So first of all, to review, now we know what a sphere looks like. It basically looks like a globe or a ball or something like that, right? But the definition of a sphere is that it is the set of all points in space, meaning not in just two dimensions, but kind of in three dimensions. All the points that would be a given distance from a given point. So we have this point that's at the center of the sphere, and if I went r units in any direction, I end up on that sphere. And so that's basically if you kind of join all those points, all those infinite points together that you would get by going in r units in any three-dimensional direction, you would form a sphere. The distance that you're going to get to each one of those points, that is, of course, the radius of the sphere. And that's the radius of a sphere is pretty much the only thing you need to know in order to do the area and the volume. Now the area of a sphere is going to equal 4 pi times the square of the radius of the sphere. So how does this look? The area of a sphere, if I wanted to shorten this down, I would just say the area of a sphere equals 4 pi times the radius squared. And it's as simple as that. Again, you just need to know the radius of the sphere, square it, multiply it by 4 pi, and there's your area of the sphere. The volume of the sphere, how much stuff you can put inside it, it's a little bit more complicated, but not really. It's equal to 4/3 pi times the cube of the radius of the sphere. So in other words, the volume of your sphere will be 4/3 pi times the radius cubed. Again, you can see the only thing we need to know about the sphere is its radius. So let's do a few examples using those formulas. To start off with, we have kind of like the most basic example. We're going to find the area and volume of a sphere that has a diameter of 12. Now remember, we need the radius for these formulas, right? We need to know the radius for both of these formulas. So let's just first realize that the radius of the sphere, if the diameter is 12, the radius would be 6, half of 12. And now we can plug that 6 into both formulas. The area is going to be 4 pi times 6 squared, which means it's going to be 4 pi times 36. And let's keep this in terms of pi. So we're just going to take 36 times 4, and we're going to get 144 pi. For the volume, we're going to take 4/3 pi times 6 to the third power. Now this is getting a little bit trickier. Now watch a little trick that I'm going to do here, because I noticed that the radius is 6 and there's a 3 down here at the bottom. And 3 can be divided, or 6 can be divided by 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 4 pi times 6 times 6 times 6 on top of a 3, which is basically just putting the pi over 1 and the 6 cubed over 1, multiplying all the numerators, multiplying all the denominators, and I get this. Why did I do that? Because I can take this 3, cancel it out, turn it into a 1, and turn one of these 6's into a 2. And so now what you can see I have is 4 times 6 times 6 times 2, or I have 8 times 36, which is going to give me 288, and then of course I have to stick on the pi there. So the volume would be 288 pi, area is 144. Next up, we got an example where I give you the area and I want to know the radius and then the volume. So we're going to take that area equals 4 pi r squared, and we're going to sub in a 12 pi for the area. So now we have 12 pi equals 4 pi r squared. If I divide both sides of this by 4 pi, of course, the 4 pi will cancel out over here. Pi's will cancel there. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So now I have 3 equals r squared. And if 3 is r squared, the radius would be the square root of 3. So now we have the radius, let's find the volume. Volume is going to be 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed, which means we're going to take 4/3 times pi times the square root of 3 cubed. Now to make this a little bit easier on myself, watch what I'm going to do. Kind of like what I did above, I'm going to put 4 pi times square root of 3 times square root of 3 times square root of 3 on top and a 3 on the bottom. Now, if I just multiply two of these square root 3's together, so if I just take these two and multiply them together, I know that that's going to turn into a 3. And then I'd still have the other square root of 3 hanging off the end here, and I still have the 3 on the bottom. But this 3 on the top will cancel out the 3 on the bottom, and now I have 4 pi times the square root of 3, which we've been writing in terms of pi as 4 pi square root 3. Lastly, we have an example where I'm giving you the volume. Oops. I'm giving you the volume, and I want to find the radius and then the area. So I'm going to say 4,000 pi over 3 equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Now I'm going to write this a little bit differently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write it, let's see, I'll have 4,000 pi over 3, and then I'm going to put 4 pi r cubed all over 3 for this side. Hopefully you realize that this is basically the same thing. I just wrote it a little bit differently. Now you'll notice that both of these things are over 3. And if these two fractions, which are both over 3, are going to be equal to each other, then it would have to be that the numerators are equal to each other. So this would indicate that 4,000 pi is equal to 4 pi r cubed. Now if you didn't see that, what you could do right here is cross multiply. So you could do the 3 times the 4,000 pi, and that would equal the 3 times the 4 pi r cubed. But then you'll notice if I just divide both sides by 3, those 3's are going to cancel out, and leaving me with 4,000 pi equals 4 pi r cubed. Alright, so next we're going to divide by 4 pi on each side. Pi's will cancel out, 4's will cancel out there, so I just have r to the third power over here. And over here the pi's will cancel out, and 4,000 divided by 4 leaves me 1,000. Now, what's the cube root of 1,000, right? To find if 1,000 is equal to r to the third power, what I really need to know is what number to the third power gives me 1,000. Or in other words, I need to know what's called the third root or the cube root of 1,000. Now, there is a calculator button that'll help you do this. Some of you might have already used it for some of the other problems we've done in this chapter. But you're looking for a button on your calculator that would probably look something like this. Right? Has a little X and then a square root button and then a Y. And the way you're going to find the cube root using that button is you'll hit 3, then you'll hit this button, and then you'll hit the 1,000, type in the 1,000. Or maybe you just recognize that the number 10, if I take 10 times 10 times 10, I'll get 1,000. Either way, the radius of this sphere would be 10. Now we're halfway done. That's just the radius. We need to find the area, but hopefully this shouldn't be too hard, right? Area is equal to 4 pi r squared, so we're going to be doing 4 pi times 10 squared, which means that we're taking 4 pi times 100, which we're just going to write as 400 pi. Okay, folks, that's it for this video, and good luck on the homework.